Salamat sa iyo, O Diyos. Salamat, Panginoong Jesus. Salamat sa iyong hanggang sa iyong pasasalamat. Espiritong Banal, salamat sa liwanag ng buhay. Salamat sa walang hanggang patnubay mo. Salamat sa iyo, O Diyos. Salamat sa mga kapatid ko. Salamat sa lahat ng kaibigan ko. Salamat, salamat sa iyo. Walang hanggang pasasalamat ang sa iyo'y aming sasambitin. Maging sa huling sandali ng aming buhay, pasasalamat sa iyo'y walang hanggan. Salamat sa bawat pagsubok. Salamat sa tibay ng loob. Sa pagbabago, salamat sa iyo, O Diyos. Salamat sa wagas na pag-ibig mo. Salamat, inibig mo ako. Salamat sa bawat taong nagmamahal. Salamat, salamat sa iyo. Walang hanggang pasasalamat kasambitin. Maging sa huling sandali ng aming buhay, pasasalamat sa iyo'y walang hanggan. Walang hanggang pasasalamat ang sa iyo'y aming sasambitin. Maging sa huling sandali ng aming buhay, pasasalamat sa iyo, pasasalamat sa iyo, pasasalamat lang hanggang walang hanggan.
So the song says it all, ano. So sabi ko nga sa inyo ay napakalaking biyaya lagi sa atin na tayo gumigising ng maaga, gumigising pa rin kahit late na, kasi yan ay buhay na bigay sa atin. Okay, so anyways, ayan. So get ready for our discussion for this morning. Actually, unlike the first 2 weeks that we have lots of topics, I think this one or this week will be the least one, because we only have 2 topics to discuss for this week. So, medyo sana madali. Kaya lang 2 topics, but then the first one has a lot to do. So, marami kayong marami tayong madidiscuss, I mean. So, probably you've seen the module in your Google Classroom. I have posted already last night. So sorry for the time kasi I forgot na during yung mga 5 hanggang 5 ng hapon, ano po. So sorry for the time that I have posted the ito yata yan. The module. And to start our discussion, let me just test you how well you know about the different terms that you'll be encountering for this morning. gaano kaya karami yung natatandaan ninyo bang words na na-discuss na during your junior high school math. And you need actually to recall them because medyo nagahang. Yan na. Okay. So actually with your module, this is your learning task number 2 and the title of this is i-connect mo. Okay, so welcome po dun sa mga first timer na dumalo sa online class ko. So I'm again your Gen Math teacher. Baka makasalubong ninyo ako, at least you know my face and you must know my name. So I'm Ma'am Sheila Marie Arce. Ano po? Okay, so with your learning task number 2, all you have to do is to connect them or you can just say the letter assigned for the corresponding answer. Okay? So anyone can volunteer except for those who always volunteered na, ano po. So I want to see other hands naman. So you can press or click the button of raise hands for me to call you. Okay? So in column A, it says here in number 1, what do you call the intercept of the graph of a rational function? So last time we have discussed already what a rational function is. So any function which is expressed as a quotient of two functions is a rational function. But then this one, so anong sabi sa atin? The intercept of the graph of a rational function is what? So anybody who wants to raise their hand? Sino ba yung nagtaas? Okay, let me call on Judel.
Good morning po, ma'am.
Good morning.
My answer po is A sub 2 po are the points of intersection of its graph and an axis.
Okay, so remember the word intercept. Ano? Di ba pag when we say intercept, it must touch that particular axis in the graph. So that's correct. Ano nga, Miss Adarlo Jodel. So that is A sub 2. Okay, how about with the second question? To find the x-intercept of a function. Yes, Uriel, how do you find the x-intercept?
My answer is letter E, let y is equal to 0.
Ayan. So for us to find the x-intercept, because when we say x-intercept, that must be the point in the graph where it will touch the x-axis. So that's correct. It's letter E. So that's the process actually. We have to substitute y equals to 0 for us to find the value of x. Yes, Miss Lim, Joyce, Diane? Joyce?
Morning po, ma'am.
Yes,
Good
good morning.
morning po. The set of all x value, H po, domain.
Okay, so that's correct. So all the set of x values are actually the domain, diba? And this is what also we called as the input. Ano po? Yan. So do sa first 2 weeks na napag-aralan natin. Parang hindi natin natanggal ni Harold yung kanyang pag-raise ng hand. Okay, Harold, for number 4. Harold. Let me call na naman from STEM B.
The zeros
Okay, Harold.
of is also m sub
M sub 1. Did I hear it right? Harold? Your answer is M sub 1.
Nawali po ako.
Yan,
M
that's
sub
okay. So the correct answer is M sub 1 actually. So function, that's actually the x-intercepts also. Ano, so basta nahanap niyo yung x-intercept, automatic that will be the zeros of the function. Probably this one is a topic new to you. Okay? So Clea, number 5.
Number 5 po, ano? Wait lang.
What's your answer, Clea?
Yung ano, nasa dulo. Wait lang.
Alin, anak? Ayan, nilagay ko na. Asymptote, automatic, we have a slant asymptote or yung oblique asymptote. Ano po? So mamaya, yan. So I know that you know the word asymptote, but later on, as we discuss this week's topic, you will encounter horizontal asymptote, vertical asymptote, and at the same time, the oblique or the slant asymptote. Okay? Can you hear it from Daniel Karandang? Daniel, anak? Carlo? From STEM B?
A sub 1 po.
It's A sub 1. Okay, Sep. Magkabaliktad yung dalawa, ha? Tandaan po yun. Okay, let's have from STEM X. Mark Daniel, number 7, anak. How do you call such kind of function? Kuya Mac,
Range po.
it's letter.
Wait lang po.
Ulit, Kuya Mac.
Rational
nag-ano ang
function
aking...
po.
Okay, so that's correct. So any of the form, thank you. Okay, let's have number 8. If you're familiar lang po let's have from Humes D. Jed. Jed anak, what do you think is the vertical asymptote? Or Rainiel Ahero. Pwede ko bang marinig ang boses ni Ahero? Okay,
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay, sige anak. What's your answer?
Letter S po ba?
Letter S. So the vertical asymptote, let's see. Vertical asymptote, whatever is the value of your A, so that will be your vertical asymptote, which is represented by X equals A. Okay? May kadaylo for number 9, anak. How do you call all the set of Y values?
T sub 2 po.
It's T sub 2, that's correct. Okay, so Y force. Siyempre, may isa na lang. Miss Marimay, Kaniyema. Kuya AJ. Kuya AJ, Raquel. Okay, anak. So ano yung horizontal asymptote natin?
Ma'am, letter S po.
Okay, so that is, ayan, so wala si S So M sub 2 daw po, Y equals B kasi tandaan niyo when we say vertical asymptote, that is X equals A, and for the yung day, di-discuss natin. Kasi yung mga words kanina na encounter ninyo, that's actually the first topic for this week, which are the intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes of rational functions. So if you can still remember last time, we tried to find the domain and range of rational functions. So this time we will have the intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes of, again, the rational functions. So first, let me present to you the 3 objectives for this morning. Yeah. So you need to recall, and that's what we had with our first activity. We tried to recall what intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes are. And then, as we go along with our discussion, you'll be able to know how do we find intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes. And then lastly, you need to solve problems involving finding intercepts, zeros, and asymptotes of rational functions. Okay, so let's now proceed. So first, of course, we need to recall what are intercepts. So we all know that we have the X and Y intercepts. When we say X intercepts, these are actually the points of intersection of its graphs and an axis. So overall, so dun po sa 2 axes natin, the X and Y axis, so yung point na nag-cross siya, anybody who wants to say something? Okay, so again, so intercepts yun yung point where it will cross the X or the Y axis, right? So again, sabi ko nga sa inyo, we have 2 kinds of intercepts. We have the Y intercept, which is actually the coordinate of Y, where the graph crosses the Y axis. And sabi kanina natin, ito yung process where we will substitute X equals 0 in order for us to find the value of Y. And then for the X intercept, it is actually the coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the X axis. And ito naman yung Y equals 0 natin. Kasi na-substitute. Okay, so let me request everyone, if you have nothing to say, kindly mute your mic, please. Okay, so here are the rules in finding the intercepts. First, to find the Y-intercept, we need to substitute 0 for X and solve for Y or f of X. Okay, so in this symbol, we have 2, or we need to replace 0 if you will use the notation f of X. But if you will use the notation Y, then replace from the given equation the f of X by the symbol Y. Okay, and then for us to find the X-intercept, then we need to substitute Y equals to 0. Okay, so let's take a look of this example number 1. So for example number 1, given the function, the rational function f of X equals X minus 5 over X plus 2. So again, we need to find both the X and Y intercepts. So to find from the given rational function, all the X's that you can see must be replaced by 0. So in that sense, you will have this one. Try to simplify this expression. So 0 minus 5, then we will have f of 0 equals negative 5 over 2. And that value is actually the value of your Y. And in notation, we have the y-intercept, which is equal to 0 and negative 5 over 2. So this is the proper way of writing your y-intercept. Ano po? So it's not just the negative 5 over 2. So we need to take always into consideration that it is the coordinate. And when we say coordinate, there must be an x, which is again 0, and then the y value natin. Okay? And then for the x-intercept, we need to substitute naman or to replace the y. So as you can see here, there's no x can be substituted or can be replaced by y. So if we will try to rewrite that, the f of x with its value, which is 0. So with here, we will try to transpose, or we can multiply the x plus 2 here just to simplify. Ano po? And we all know naman that any expression, any number multiplied by 0 will always be equal to 0. So that's why we will have. Okay, as for the next step, it will be 0 equals x minus 5. So hindi na po natin sinulat yung 0 times x plus 2 ha. So automatic the product na po yung nilagay natin. So therefore, solving for the value of x here, then x will be equal to positive 5. And so the look at the process by which we tried to write the x and y intercepts. Any question with this first example? None? Okay. Let me proceed with the second example. Clear ba yung voice ko or medyo parang nagkaano siya? Nagpuputol.
Clear po.
Okay, thank you. Yan. So as for our example number 2, as you can see here, it's not as simple as the first example. Okay? So with this one, you must need to first, so bakit ba siya naging x plus 1 over x minus 3? Because if we will try to factor the numerator, the factors of that are what? Lans.
X.
Sige po, sino ba na yung naimit na?
Oh, wait lang, banya pala.
It's x plus 1 times x plus 3. Diba? You need to look for the factors of 3. Yan, factors of 3 in which the sum is positive 4. And those are positive 1 and positive 3. Okay, so those are the factors of the numerator. Well, in your denominator, so this is difference of 2 squares. So you must have na dalawang parentheses, getting the square root of x na x, and then getting the square root of 9, which is 3. Okay, and then automatic, 1 is negative, and the other one is positive. Yan. Yan po yung factors niyan. And then pag na-factors na natin or nakuha na natin yung factors of both the numerator and the denominator, the next thing to do is to simplify and that we can cancel the x plus 3. So what are left are x plus 1 and over x minus 3. Okay? So meaning, if in case the given rational function is not in its simplest form, you need to simplify that. So in doing that, you can now find the x and y intercept. Okay, so again, replace x by zeros, then we will get that f of 0 is equal to negative 1/3, and then the x-intercept, replace f of x by 0, then you'll have x equals negative 1. So therefore, the x and y intercepts are 0 and negative 1/3, negative 1 and 0 respectively. Question, please? Silence means no na, no, none na daw. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at example number 3 kung meron. Okay, so 2 examples lang yung binigay natin. One simple rational function and the other one is quite complicated, wherein you need to factor the rational functions. This time we have the zeros. And as it's said in our first activity, when we say zeros of a function, that is actually your x-intercept. So once you are able to get the x-intercept correctly, automatic you'll have another point for the zeros of function because okay, these are the function 0. The numbered zeros are also x-intercepts of the graph of the function. So look at this graph. To factor the numerator and denominator, then identify the restrictions. When we say restrictions, what are those values of x that must not be, right? And then identify the zeros. Right? And see here, this is the x-intercept and at the same time, the zero of a function. Kaya sabi ko sa inyo, automatic, kapag nakuha ninyo, di ba kanina sa solving natin, we have x equals, let's say x equals negative 5. So that will be your zero of a function na. Okay po? So you don't need to write that as a coordinate. Kung ano yung nahanap ninyong value ng x, yun na rin po yung automatic na zero of a function ninyo. Pero when we talk of the x-intercept, you need to write that as a coordinate. Okay po, negative 5, 0. So parehas lang siya. Yan. So look at example number 3. Sabi sa atin, factor, then you need to factor both the numerator and the denominator. Kaya sabi, no need to factor. And that's actually the first step, di ba? The second step, we need to find the restrictions. What are those values of x that must not be replaced or must not be its value because it will make the rational function a denominator. So equate that to 0. Therefore, the restriction is that x must not be equal to negative 2. Okay po? And then the third step, you need to find the value of x in the numerator. Okay? So what are or is the value of the numerator that will make it equal to 0? Then it's getting the numerator x minus 5, then x is equal to 5, take 0 of your fraction. Okay po? So ganun lang siya. So pag i-rewrite natin, you can have this phrase or this sentence that the 0 of f of x is 5, or you can just have x equals 5. Okay po yun? Dali lang. No? Sa example 4 natin, again, sa example na ginamit natin kanina, we tried to factor both the numerator and the denominator, but this time we'll not simplify it. Ano po? Kasi sabi lang doon sa step natin, you just need to factor both the numerator and restrictions. And what are the restrictions? Those are the values of x coming from the denominator. So automatic, from here, the restrictions are x step, you need to get the values of x from the numerator naman. And what are those values? We have automatic opposite in sign na po nito ha. So pwedeng hindi nyo na ipakita, pwedeng masabi nyo na kaagad. So then we'll have x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 1. Therefore, what are the zeros of the function? Okay. So we have x equals neglected. Sa palagay nyo po kaya, bakit hindi natin sinama si negative 3? Eh si negative 3, nakita natin na siya yung isa siya sa mga values ng x that will make the numerator 0. Yes, Nico?
Restriction po, ma'am.
Yan. Because this value is, again, under the restriction. And that's the importance of finding first the restriction equal to 0. Clear po tayo doon? Okay? If in case that both your x's in the numerator are equally the same as the restrictions, then that means that there is no 0 of the function, that there is no 0 of the rational function.
Yes po,
Maliwanag
ma'am.
po yun? Okay. So we have the two topics already, the intercepts and the zeros. Okay. So last example natin, we have there the quantity x minus 4 squared over x minus 4x plus 4. So sa numerator natin, we have x minus 4, you need to write that twice. Tapos finding the restrictions, we have x equals 4 and x equals negative 4. And then for the numerator, it's only x plus 4. O yan, iisa lang siya, di ba? Yan. Pero ano maging 0 of a function natin? Sa palagay ninyo, ano maging 0 of a function?
Wala.
Meron kaya o wala?
Wala
Yan.
po.
So, since iisa naman yan, di ba? Though we have two values of x here, which are both equal to 4, and then it's the function has no 0 of a function. So it has no 0. So ito po yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina, na if in case the values of your x are exactly the same as the restrictions, then there's no 0 of a function. Okay pa? So let's have the last one, which is the asymptotes. So as we say, an asymptote is an imaginary line to which a graph gets closer, okay? And closer the x or y increases or decreases its value without limit. So ito po yung kung makikita ninyo dun sa, kung nagamit ninyo yung GeoGebra, di ba? Yun yung dulo ng graph ninyo na nagtatouch siya either dun sa x-axis or sa y-axis, but it will not actually touch. Approaching lang siya infinitely. So that is what we call as the asymptote. And there are three kinds of asymptote. We have the vertical, the horizontal, and the oblique or slant asymptote. So how do we find the vertical asymptote? So the vertical asymptote, they are actually the restrictions on the x values of a reduced. Okay, reduced na ha, yun yung sinimplified na natin. Kasi kanina nung hinanap natin yung zeros of our function, hindi natin siya ni-reduce or hindi natin siya sinimplify. But in finding the vertical asymptote, you need to simplify the given rational function, and then whatever x values that you will find from that function, then that will be the value of your vertical asymptote. Okay? So solve for x. So you can find the vertical asymptote from your denominator or the value of your x in the denominator. Okay, so in the graph, yan po yung ating vertical asymptote. Okay, if makita natin from this vertical asymptote, yung dulo niya nag-approach lang yan dyan sa taas at saka yung dito sa baba. Yan po yung sinasabi natin ng vertical asymptote. Okay, Okay. How about when it comes to horizontal asymptote? And then, kanina, di ba, sinabi natin that when we say vertical asymptote, that is actually x equals a. So mamaya makikita ninyo saan ba kinukuha yung a, saan kinukuha yung y equals b for the horizontal asymptote. Okay? Now, in the case of horizontal asymptote, you have to take into consideration the n and the m. And what is that n and m? You need to determine, or you need to find the degree of both the numerator and the denominator, where n will be the degree of your numerator. Again, when we say degree, it's actually the highest exponent from your numerator, and your m is the highest exponent in your denominator. Okay? So there are three cases. N is less than m, meaning the degree of your numerator is less than the degree of the denominator. Halimbawa, ang degree ng numerator niyo is 1, and the degree of your denominator is 2, automatic that your horizontal asymptote will be y equals to 0. No need to solve. Okay po? If that will be the case, na yung denominator ninyo ay mas mataas ang degree kesa sa numerator, no solving at all, automatic, y equals 0. Meaning the horizontal asymptote is 0. Okay po? But in the case where your degree, okay, in the case where the degrees of both the numerator and the denominator ay equal, then you need to have y equals a over b. Okay? So this equation, saan natin nakukuha si a? A actually is the numerical coefficient of the numerator. When we say numerical coefficient, let's say, for example, the first term of your numerator is 3x. So what's the numerical coefficient of that? It's the 3. Therefore, your a will be equal to 3. Okay po? While the b is the leading coefficient of the denominator. Okay? Leading coefficient or the numerical coefficient of your denominator, kung ano man yung kasama ni x. Okay? So, yun yung magiging b ninyo. Okay? Kung ano yung lumabas after simplifying a over b, then that will be your horizontal asymptote. Okay po? But if the case is that the numerator or the degree of the numerator is greater than the degree of the denominator, automatic, there's no horizontal asymptote. And that will be the effect of having no horizontal asymptote will have a slant or oblique asymptote. Okay po? So doon lang po lalabas si horizontal, si slant or oblique asymptote sa case na walang horizontal asymptote. Nakakaintindihan? Okay, let's try to find, okay, this is the graph naman of the horizontal asymptote. Okay. Let's have this example. Y equals x minus 5 over x plus 2. I'm still using the same examples that we had for intercepts and asymptotes. Hindi na po ako nagpapabago ba? Okay, so paano daw natin kukunin? Let's try to find first the vertical asymptote. Saan siya nakukuha? Sa inyong denominator, sa x plus 2. Okay po? And that will be x equals negative 2. So automatic, the vertical asymptote, yun na po yun. As easy as that. Okay po? And then for the horizontal asymptote, saan daw natin siya nakukuha? Okay, you need to determine first the degree. Anong degree niya? What's the degree of the numerator?
1.
1 po, ma'am.
Okay, that's correct. 1. How about the degree of the denominator?
1
1 na rin po.
Ayan. So since the degree of the numerator and the denominator is equal, automatic, what will be your
1
Your
over
reason.
1 po. 1.
Okay, magiging 1 siya. Bakit maging 1 over 1? You need to determine your A and your B. Diba? Ano ang kasama ni X dun sa numerator? Pag walang number,
1
nakasama, automatic, that's 1. Ano po? And in your denominator, wala rin kasama ulit si X. Dito po siya nakukuha, ha? Yan. Yung numerical coefficient ni X sa numerator at sa denominator, yung sa taas po, yun po yung A, sa ibaba po, yun po yung B. Okay? So, kaya yun po yung kinuha natin. Pag sinubstitute natin from this expression, then your y will be equal to 1. And that y equals 1 is actually your horizontal asymptote. And since this function, this rational function has a horizontal asymptote, then that means it has no vertical, or it has no slant or oblique asymptote. Yun na po yun, ha, automatic po siya. Okay, so that's the process of finding both the horizontal and the vertical asymptote. And let's try to define naman what a vertical asymptote is. And saan natin siya nakukuha from the graph. Okay, ito pala. Yan, ito pala. Another one, ito yung another case naman where the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the numerator. Okay, sa denominator natin, for the vertical asymptote, we try to factor yan, of x. So dalawa yung nakuha natin, x equals negative 1/2 and x equals negative 1. So these are the two values of your vertical asymptotes. For the horizontal, yan, ito yung sinasabi ko na sa inyo, sorry for this, it should be y, typographical error. So this should be y, a vertical asymptote rather, not for the y-intercept. It should be for the vertical asymptote. Replace x by 0, or we need to determine, diba? Ito na yung sinabi ko sa kanina, that the degree of the numerator is less than. Therefore, anong sabi natin doon? Sa unang case, y will be equal to 0. No need to show, kasi yun na po yun. Okay po? Okay. Ito naman. The degree of the numerator is greater than. Anong sabi vertical asymptote? Okay. 2 values na vertical asymptotes natin. And then anong sabi dun sa last case natin? Where n is greater than m. So automatic, dyan lalabas, kapag walang horizontal asymptote, si slant or asymptote, it's actually, it occurs when there is no horizontal asymptote and when the numerator or the degree of the numerator is greater than the degree of the denominator. One higher only. Ano po? And to find the oblique asymptote, you need to divide. So medyo i-recall natin on how to divide polynomials. So kung ito yung vertical asymptote, nandyan din, meron kayo ditong, wala nga daw siyang horizontal, di ba? Ito yung magiging slant or oblique asymptote niyo. Yan po yung magiging graph for your vertical and oblique asymptote. Kasi automatic, wala na siyang horizontal. Yan. So ito po yung kaninang example natin na nawala ang horizontal asymptote. So we need to divide. Ano po? So pag dinivide natin, you need to use the long division. Yan. So kung matatandaan ninyo, this is actually the process since, di ba, the first step that you need to do is to rearrange both the dividend and the divisor in descending order. So since nag-start siya with 3 as its highest exponent and no 2 and then 1, nag-constant, ano po, para hindi tayo malito. So dinivide natin si 9x cubed by 9x squared. Naging sagot natin is 3x. So doon natin siya tinatapat. And then multiply. Yan. Multiply si 3x dun sa 3. Yan. Again, this happens only if there is no horizontal asymptote. So multiplying si 3x dun sa 3, then we'll have, yan po siya, then subtractions na kayo, we need to divide again the first term by the first term of your divisor. Yan. So pag dinivide na po natin siya, the quotient is -2, and then again multiply. Yan. And then, okay, so this one, hindi na natin siya kayang ma-divide doon. Ano po? So ito na po yung ating remainder natin. Ito po siya. Pero ano yung magiging slant or oblique asymptote natin? Saan natin siya kukunin? Sabi sa atin kanina, we can find that by setting the quotient. The quotient. Useless po yung magiging remainder. So kung ano yung magiging quotient ninyo, except for the remainder, that will be actually your oblique or slant asymptote. So the x mark of this rational function. Maliwanag po tayo doon, mga anak?
Opo.
Ma'am, pag isusulat na po yung oblique asymptote, ito na lang pong y equals 3x
Yes
minus
po.
2 po.
Yan po, ang magiging slant or oblique asymptote natin. So unlike nung kanina, unless that the quotient will really be the same nung kanina natin na isang value lang halimbawa, ganyan. Pero in most cases, that's the way we write the oblique or slant asymptote. Ano po? Okay na po tayo doon?
Okay na po.
We still have a time. Mukhang hindi na tayo aabot para sa ating may grouping sana. Okay, but parang hindi na natin kakayanin pag nag-group pa tayo, nag-group activity. Ano po? So, I'll be assigning na lang po the first number. You can raise your hand na lang. If you know, 1 by 1 lang po ha. So, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 3, 18 students. Carl, anak. For x-intercept of number 1. Carl? Can you tell me at once?
Mama ko po ba?
Anybody na nag-solve na ng x-intercept? So ano sa palagay ninyo, x-intercept?
Ma'am,
Yes po.
try lang po.
Sige lang po. It's
X-intercept po ay... ma'am, may final answer po ba yung Di ba po ma'am gagawin pong 0 yung x?
X-intercept anak, ang gagawin natin ay y ang 0.
Ay, okay.
Hindi nyo ba napansin kanina yung shortcut kung paano i-find ang x-intercept? Di ba isa-set natin si f of x na 0, so automatic, si denominator pag minultiply mo doon, 0 na siya. Sige anak, sino yung una nag-raise ng hand? Hindi ko agad nakita.
Ma'am.
Sige po. Tell us
Ma'am,
what is your
x equals 9.
Again, this is the x-intercept. You need to tell the answer in coordinate form or express your answer in coordinate form. Ordered pair. It should be oh, yan anak, mga anak, 9-0. Automatic from your numerator. Ano po? Yan. Opposite in sign na nun, yun yung magiging x ninyo. Okay? Let's say, Hana, y-intercept, anak. Saan naman natin kinukuha ang y-intercept? Aryan?
Y-intercept is denoted by 0, -3.
Okay, so it's 0, -3. Thank you. For the zeros of the function, Mika from STEMB. So anong sabi natin? Kung ano ang x-intercept mo, yun din ang 0 of the function. So what is the value of your x in the x-intercept? Aliza?
9 po.
Okay, so that will be x equals 9. Okay? And then for the vertical asymptote, anong sabi sa atin sa vertical asymptote? Saan natin nakikita? Yes, Francine?
Ma'am, ano po? X equals -3 po.
Okay. So nakikita niyo yung kanilang connection, the x-intercept, the y-intercept, the zeros, and the vertical. Diba? O yung,
Yes po, ma'am.
yung zeros nanggaling dito. Yung vertical asymptote ninyo nanggaling lang dun sa value ng y from your y-intercept. Diba? Okay. How about your horizontal asymptote? Saan natin kinukuha daw ang horizontal asymptote? O, sabi yung degree ng numerator at degree ng denominator equal. So you need to have, yes, Margaret Elia from STEMC?
Ma'am, yung horizontal asymptote po ay y equals 1.
Okay, very good. So y equals 1 because the numerical coefficient of x here is 1. The numerical coefficient in the denominator is 1. So 1 divided by 1 is 1. And since there is a horizontal asymptote, what does it mean? It has no oblique or slant asymptote. So ganun lang po siya kadali. 'Di ba? Okay? Yan. So mapapractice niyo po yan. Okay. So any question with this? We'll try to skip examples number 2 and number 3, ha? You can try it solving at in your notebook na lang after our class or during your free time. Okay, and for the last topic for this week, solving real-life problems involving rational functions, equations, and inequalities. So pinagsama-sama na yung topics natin last week and itong last 2 topics natin. So these are the 3 objectives, okay? And we need to actually apply. Let's see example number 1. So Quezon National High School is preparing for its 119th founding anniversary. The stakeholders to be divided among various committees of the celebration. So construct a function C of n, which would give them amount of money each committee have. So i-represent po natin siya sa rational function. So paano po natin siya ma-represent? It will be C of n equals what? Yan. So 90,000 i-divide natin kung ilan man yung tao po doon sa pagdodonatan. Ano po? And then yung continuation kung sakali 90,000 divided by 6. So each committee will receive 15,000 pesos. Yan. So ganun lang po. So for your learning task number 3, yan. Ito po ang kailangan niyo i-submit or i-save sa Google Drive or isulat para dun sa mga printed modality. Ito po yung kailangan ninyong isulat na sa papel at isubmit sa akin, the independent assessment one. Okay po, yan yung isa. Okay, this one will just be a practice for you. So para this week, and then yung second required activity ko is the summative assessment. Summative assessment number 1 will be posted in the Google Classroom. For those printed modalities po, you can easily access the summative test number 1 in the Google Classroom. Wala pa po akong pinopost, ipopost ko pa po siya after our class. Ano po, kaya doon pa lang siya matutunghayan. Yung mga printed, pag nagsagot na po kayo sa Google Classroom, no need to answer that using a paper. Okay po? Okay, so any question? Or anybody from the class who wants to tell us the story of what we had for this week? Meron ba? Wala. Parang naunti na tayo. Last time, the first week, 100, parang 100, umabot tayo ng 101 participants. Last week, Miko, anak, at saka si Hubert.
Yes po, ma'am. Kanina pa po ako nag-i-screenshot pa.
Thank you, thank you. Ayan, ngayon ay 81 na tayo. O, Miko, baka gusto mong sabihin sa kanila kung ano yung mga na-discuss natin for this week?
This week po, ma'am. Bale, ito po, ma'am. Okay. So, in this session, we have talked about the intercepts and zeros of a function and also the asymptote. Okay, so the y-intercept and x-intercept is just a recall of what we have learned from the previous years. And we know that in x-intercept, we let the y equal to 0 to find the x-intercept. And while on y-intercept, we let x be equal to 0. And we all know that if we say x and y-intercept, it should be on a as an ordered pair or on a coordinate form. And also moving to the zeros of the function or the rational function, it is related to the x-intercept and y-intercept. The zeros of the function is related to the x-intercept because it will just not be on a coordinate form. It will be just x equal to the value of x. And moving on to the asymptote, we have vertical, horizontal, and slant or oblique asymptote. So in vertical asymptote is related to the y-intercept. So what we answer on the y-intercept is also the same on the vertical asymptote. Is just denoted as y equals the value of y. And moving on to the horizontal asymptote, there's different conditions on finding the horizontal asymptote, which we should know first the degree of the numerator and denominator. And degree is the highest exponent of the polynomial. So if we have the degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator, then we have y equals 0. No need to solve. And if we have the degree of the numerator is equal to the degree of the denominator, then we have to find the leading coefficient or the numerical coefficient of the highest term or with the highest degree. So it will be a over b. Then that's the horizontal asymptote of that function. And if the degree of the numerator is greater than the degree of the denominator, then
by 1 lang ha, by 1 lang anak.
Yes. Okay. So if the degree of the numerator is greater than the degree of the denominator by only 1, then there is no horizontal asymptote, and we need to find the oblique or slant asymptote. And finding the oblique or slant asymptote, then we need to wait. I think we need to divide the numerator and denominator by using as we have done earlier is the long division method. And remember that only the quotient is count as the slant asymptote, and we can disregard the remainder of the division of polynomial. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miko. Yan ang papalit sa akin ba? ikaw nang papalit sa akin. So anyways, it's almost 9 o'clock. The recorded version of this in your corresponding GCs